Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Morning Markets on Tuesday, the 25th of August. Relatively quiet day in markets over the past 24 hours. A few things that the team were discussing this morning, primarily looking firstly just at asset markets and how they've performed over the past 24 hours. What can we see there? We can see continued strength in equity markets across the globe. Interestingly, when we delve a little bit into that, and we look at some of the sectoral performances and the regional performances, it is interesting just to see on the day stronger performance from more of the economically sensitive sectors, the financials, industrials, etc. For example, in the US, with the transportation sub-index up over 2%, with the KBW Banks Index up about 3.6% on the day. That compares to the NASDAQ up 60 basis points, the S&P just up over 1%, and the Dow about 1.4. So a slightly broader market environment yesterday in the US, and that was also evident in the UK and Europe, where we saw stronger performances in those markets. The Euro Stoxx 50 up over 2% in the day. Again, that's something that we've seen quite a few times over the past number of months as we've been looking at some of the subsector performances. What we get and what we seem to happen is that for a number of days or maybe weeks, we see a slightly better performance from some of these subsectors, and then that rolls over again. Suffice to say, we can continue to see the growth orientated areas of the market being the stronger performing over the month to date and year to date as well. Looking at bond markets yesterday, sovereign bond markets, very little was happening there. Yields little changed. The 10-year yield in the US at 65 basis points, and then in the UK, we've got the 10-year gilt on 21 basis points. FX markets, very little again, little to see, maybe a little bit of dollar weakness, but not very noticeable against the major currencies on the day. Other things that I thought interesting overnight, and we got information from the US and China about the discussions they were having around the success of the phase one of the trade deal that was agreed back in January. I know it seems like a long time ago, but they're reviewing it, and quite interestingly, given everything we've talked about in morning markets over the past number of months about the increasing rhetoric between the US and China, actually both sides seem to agree that the trade deal is working well, and both sides seeing progress being made, committed to taking the steps necessary to ensure the success of the agreement. I think is something, or paraphrasing the comments that came from the US yesterday. So gives an indication that at one level there's a lot of political rhetoric, political noise, and indeed action, but also at the trade level there is an impetus on both sides to maintain some form of cordial relationship in that regard. I think the only other thing just to mention yesterday, and we touched on it last week in terms of the Democratic convention. We move this week in the US to the start of the Republican convention. Interestingly, yesterday in his comments and speech at the virtual convention, as both have been, Donald Trump just talked about the success as he sees it of his time in leadership in the US, but also the challenges that coronavirus brought, predominantly that it's a Chinese issue, and also how he sees his way of dealing with it has been positive. I'll leave that for all of us to take a view on over time as we get to hear more from both Joe Biden and Donald Trump in the coming weeks as they move towards the election at the beginning of November. That's it for today. Please join me again tomorrow. Thank you very much.